Everyone else heard a child's prank, but she heard the truth in the tremor of his voice and the distant, chilling sound of a ship's horn. Amina, a seasoned dispatcher in Nairobi's busiest emergency call center, felt a cold knot tighten in her stomach. The call had come in just after midnight, a frantic, high-pitched voice whispering that his mother had been taken. They put a bag on her head. The boy cried, his words stumbling over each other. They took her away in a big, white van. Amina tried to get more information, a location, anything, but the line went dead. Her supervisor, David, had overheard and just shook his head. Kids, Amina, probably watched too many movies. He logged it as a prank call, closing the file before she could protest. But something held her back. The sound. It wasn't a ship's horn, not really. It was fainter, more metallic. A sound she'd heard once before, years ago, when she lived near the industrial railway lines that snaked through the city's underbelly. It was the specific, haunting echo of a train horn reverberating off the vast, empty shipping containers stacked near the old port district. No one lived there. It was a ghost town of rusting metal and forgotten warehouses. The child's voice hadn't sounded like a prank. It sounded like pure terror. Amina's shift ended at 2 in the morning, but she couldn't go home. The child's desperate plea echoed in her mind. David's dismissal felt wrong, dangerously wrong. She couldn't shake the feeling that this was connected to the recent string of high-profile kidnappings that had gripped the city in fear. The victims were always wealthy, and the kidnapper, known only as the Ghost, left no traces. Police were stumped. The media was in a frenzy. And now, a child's call, dismissed as a game. Amina made a decision that would change her life forever. She got into her small car, her heart pounding against her ribs, and drove towards the industrial district. She was officially off duty. This was her own time, her own risk. Her colleagues would call her crazy if they knew. She was just a dispatcher, a voice on the phone. What could she possibly do? But she was also a mother. He thought of that little boy, alone and terrified, was a fire in her gut. She had to know. The city lights faded behind her, replaced by the looming, skeletal silhouettes of cranes and warehouses. The streets here were unlit, pocked with potholes that jolted her car. It was an area the police patrolled in pairs, and only during the day. At night, it belonged to the shadows. Amina pulled over, turning off her engine. The silence was absolute, broken only by the distant hum of the city and the wind whistling through the gaps in the corrugated metal walls surrounding her. She got out of her car, a small flashlight her only weapon. She remembered the boy's words. A big, white van. She scanned the dark, narrow alleys between the mountains of shipping containers. It was a needle in a haystack. Where could she even begin to look? She walked slowly, her footsteps echoing unervingly in the stillness. Every rustle of loose plastic, every creak of metal, sent a jolt of adrenaline through her. She was acutely aware of how alone she was, how vulnerable. This was a world away from her quiet desk and the controlled chaos of the call center. This was real. She had been searching for what felt like hours when she saw it. Tucked away behind a stack of faded blue containers, almost completely hidden from the main path, was a white van. It was old, splattered with mud, and one of the back doors was slightly ajar. Amina's breath caught in her throat. She approached cautiously, her flashlight beam trembling in her hand. The inside was empty, except for a child's worn-out sneaker lying on the floor. It was a Spider-Man shoe, the red and blue colors faded from use. Her heart sank. This was it. This was real. The boy was real, and he was somewhere nearby. She looked around, her eyes scanning the towering walls of the warehouses that loomed over her. Which one? They all looked the same, dark, silent, and menacing. Then, she heard it again. Not a train horn, but something else. A faint, muffled sob. It was coming from the largest warehouse at the end of the alley, a colossal, decaying structure with shattered windows like vacant eyes. The sound was faint, almost lost in the wind, but it was unmistakably the cry of a child. Amina felt a wave of fear so intense it almost buckled her knees. Her training screamed at her to call for backup, to wait for the police. But her instincts, the same instincts that had led her here, told her there was no time. The boy was in there, and he was in danger. Every minute she wasted was a minute the ghost could use to disappear again. She crept towards the warehouse, her body pressed against the cold, rusty metal wall. A large sliding door was pulled almost shut, leaving only a narrow, person-sized gap. The crying was louder now, punctuated by a man's voice, low and menacing. She couldn't make out the words, but the tone was dripping with cold fury. Amina knew she should run, but the image of the little Spider-Man shoe flashed in her mind. She took a deep breath, trying to silence the frantic beating of her own heart. She had to see. She had to know who was inside. Gathering every ounce of courage she possessed, she peered through the gap. What she saw made her blood run cold. Inside the cavernous, dimly lit space, a woman was tied to a chair. A bag was still over her head. Standing over her was a tall, imposing figure. He was turned away from the door, but Amina could see the glint of a gun in his hand. And in the corner, huddled behind a pile of wooden crates, was a small boy. He was trying to stifle his sobs, his tiny body shaking. The man turned slightly, and the single bare bulb hanging from the ceiling illuminated his face. Amina gasped. It was a face she recognized instantly, a face everyone in Kenya recognized. It wasn't some shadowy criminal. It was a prominent public figure, a man praised for his philanthropy and loved by the media, a man who was supposed to be a hero. He was the Ghost, the most dangerous criminal in Africa. The pieces clicked into place with terrifying clarity. His connections, his resources, his ability to move without suspicion, it all made sense. He was hiding in plain sight. He hadn't heard her gasp, but the boy had. His tear-filled eyes locked with hers across the dusty expanse of the warehouse. A silent plea passed between them. The man, the Ghost, started speaking to the woman in the chair. His voice, so often heard on television speaking of hope and progress, was now a venomous whisper. "You thought you could expose me," he hissed. "You and your nosy journalist friends. Nobody says no to me." He raised the gun, and Amina knew she had seconds to act. Her phone was in her pocket. She could call 911, but would they get here in time? He was about to pull the trigger. She had to do something, create a diversion, anything. Her eyes darted around the alley outside. A stack of empty oil drums stood precariously balanced. It was a crazy idea, a long shot, but it was the only one she had. She braced herself, took a running start, and threw her entire body weight against the metal drums. They crashed to the ground with a deafening, echoing clang that ripped through the night. Inside, the man spun around, startled, his eyes wide with alarm. "Who's there?" he roared, his voice booming in the warehouse. He started moving towards the door, gun raised. Amina didn't wait to see what he would do. She scrambled away from the door, her heart hammering as she fumbled for her phone. She needed to get back to her car, call for backup, lead them here. She could hear his heavy footsteps getting closer, pounding on the concrete floor. She ran, ducking behind the tall stacks of shipping containers, her breath coming in ragged gasps. The alleyways were a maze, and in her panic, she took a wrong turn. A dead end. A solid wall of shipping containers blocked her path. She was trapped. She could hear him searching, cursing under his breath. He was getting closer. She pressed herself into the shadows, making herself as small as possible, trying to control her panicked breathing. The sound of his footsteps stopped. The silence that followed was even more terrifying. He was listening, just like she was. Amina held her breath, praying he wouldn't find her. Then, she heard his voice, chillingly close. "I know you're out here. You can't hide from me." He was just on the other side of the container she was hiding behind. Amina knew it was over. He would find her. There was nowhere left to run. Her mind raced, thinking of her own children, of the life she was about to lose. But then, she thought of the boy inside, his terrified eyes. She couldn't give up. Not now. She looked down at her phone, the screen lighting up her face. One bar of signal. It was a miracle. With trembling fingers, she typed a text message. A single word, a warehouse address. She sent it to the one person she knew would believe her, the one person who trusted her gut. Her rookie partner, Ben, who was just starting his shift back at the call center. "Send help," she typed, her thumb hovering over the send button. Just as she was about to press it, a shadow fell over her. She looked up slowly. The Ghost was standing there, a cruel smile twisting his famous face. "Found you," he whispered, raising the gun. Suddenly, the night was shattered by the wail of sirens. Not one, but a dozen, getting closer with every second. The Ghost's face contorted in fury and disbelief. He had been so careful. How? He looked from Amina to the approaching lights, his mind racing. He was trapped. Amina hadn't pressed send. Ben had acted on her first message, the single address. He had trusted her. The ghost looked back at Amina, his eyes filled with pure hatred. He couldn't be taken. His empire would crumble, his public image destroyed. If he was going down, he was taking her with him. But before he could pull the trigger, the warehouse door burst open. The little boy, seeing his chance, had run and unlatched it from the inside. He came sprinting out into the alley, straight towards Amina. The ghost was momentarily distracted, his aim wavering. It was the only opening Amina needed. She lunged, not at the gun, but at his legs, tackling him with all her might. They both went down in a tangle of limbs as the first police car screeched into the alley, its headlights pinning them in a brilliant, blinding glare. Amina, the dispatcher, the voice on the phone, had done the impossible. She had faced down Africa's most dangerous criminal and won. As officers swarmed him, she pulled the crying boy into her arms, whispering, "It's okay. You're safe now." In the distance, the first light of dawn was breaking over Nairobi. What a story, right? It just goes to show you that heroes can be found anywhere. If you love this incredible tale of bravery, make sure to hit that like button, share it with your friends, and subscribe for more amazing true stories. Thanks for watching.